weather on Wednesday. A rogue thunderstorm popping up for the afternoon, the high 95. Scattered showers with thunderstorms coming our way for Thursday, the high 93. And more rounds of storms rolling in by Friday afternoon. I'm WWNO meteorologist Jennifer Naramore for New Orleans Public Radio.
Israel now so arrogant, wants to be the hegemon, and it wants now to engineer a new Middle East in its own image.
How does the rest of the Arab world view the conflict between Israel and Iran?
For Tuesday, June 24th, this is All Things Considered from NPR News.
I'm Ari Shapiro.
And I'm Elsa Chang. This hour, how does China fit into the Israel-Iran war?
And an update on the administration's plan to send migrants to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Plus, we'll explain why Republicans are split over a proposal to sell off millions of acres of land that the federal government owns.
There's no fix to start selling our public lands to pay off tax breaks for billionaires. Period.
Later, tips on how to stay cool in a heat dome.
The root cause of a lot of discomfort is a house that is leaky. So one of the key things to look at is where you can seal up the house.
And the president drops an F-bomb.
First, this news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. A U.S. official not authorized to speak publicly tells NPR that U.S. military strikes against 3 Iranian nuclear sites this past Saturday set the program back a few months, and that damage to the centrifuges at the underground Fordo facility was limited. The official says the early assessment says the attacks did not obliterate Iran's nuclear enrichment program, as President Trump had said. The president has arrived in the Netherlands to attend the NATO summit. It's a short gathering this year. It ends tomorrow. But there are some big debates happening over defense spending by alliance member nations. NPR's Deepa Shivaram has more.
The goal of the summit is to get NATO nations to commit to spending 5% of their GDP on defense in the next decade. But President Trump isn't convinced the U.S. should have to adhere to that number. On the flight over to the Netherlands, he said he doesn't think the U.S. needs to pay what Europe pays. He was also unclear on his commitment to Article 5 of the NATO Charter, the mutual defense agreement that says if one NATO country is attacked, all will defend. Trump said he was committed to, quote, saving lives, and said he'd give an exact definition on his stance on Article 5 when he got to the Netherlands. Nations are meeting for a dinner at the palace of the King of the Netherlands this evening, and then gathering for summit sessions on Wednesday. Deepa Shivaram, NPR News, The Hague.
New Yorkers are voting today in the city's Democratic mayoral primary. NPR's Sarah Ventry reports there are clear frontrunners among the 11 candidates.
The frontrunners are current member of the state assembly, Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, a centrist Democrat. Both candidates have campaigned on issues of affordability, public safety, and education, but with very different visions for the city. Because this election uses ranked choice voting, the outcome may not be immediately known. Sarah Ventry, NPR News, New York.
Stocks gained for a second day while oil prices continued falling on hopes tensions in the Middle East ease. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 507 points. NPR's Raphael Nam has more.
Tensions between Iran and Israel continue despite a fragile ceasefire agreement between the two countries. The U.S. helped broker. Nonetheless, the situation will improve and that cooler heads will prevail. That optimism is helping fuel gains in Wall Street. Oil prices fell sharply after President Trump said today that China could buy oil from Iran. That's helping reduce concerns about global supplies. Nonetheless, investors are mindful that things could change pretty quickly. Raphael Nam, NPR News.
This is NPR News from Washington.
It's 3:04. Here's your Louisiana news. Louisiana's attendance rates have been moving in the wrong direction since the pandemic. Now, the State Department of Education is taking action. Education reporter Aubrey Uhas has more.
About a quarter of students were chronically absent 2 school years ago, missing on average about 3 weeks of school, according to the department. Even more students were considered truant, meaning they were late or absent without an excuse 5 or more times in the semester. To tackle the issue, the state's Department of Education has a new dedicated attendance team. Its 3 members are located across the state so they can visit schools more easily. Their focus is on making sure schools are recording attendance accurately and addressing underlying causes. While most states have seen their attendance rates recover in recent years, Louisiana's has gotten worse. In New Orleans, I'm Aubrey Juhas.
An LSU energy expert tells consumers not to expect wild swings in gas prices due to the conflict in the Middle East, despite any initial effects as we might see at the gas pump. Dr. Greg Upton, executive director of the Center for Energy Studies at LSU, says the price of crude has actually dropped 7% following Iran's retaliation against the U.S. on Monday.
What we've seen over time and over the decade is that the responsiveness of that oil price has been less and less and less to these geopolitical shocks.
Upton says the Middle East crisis should not have much of a long-term impact on the oil market, but that it may cause countries to start looking towards more politically stable regions for oil. Trying to help revive Louisiana's stagnant film industry, Governor Landry signed a law enacting new rules that expands the power of the state's Economic Development Agency to make changes to the film incentive program. Under the new law, qualified productions can receive a tax credit of up to 40% of total production expenditures. Officials with the agency that oversee the film tax credit say they hope the new law will give them flexibility necessary to attract more business to the state. With Louisiana News, I'm Bob Pavlovich.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Walton Family Foundation, working to create access to opportunity for people and communities by tackling tough social and environmental problems. More information is at waltonfamilyfoundation.org.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Elsa Chang in Culver City, California.
And I'm Ari Shapiro in Washington. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran got off to a shaky start. The countries had been at war for 12 days when President Trump announced the pause in fighting last night. Israel hit Iran again soon after that announcement, and Iran struck back, which prompted a furious reply from the U.S. president. Of course, the U.S. is directly involved in this conflict, having bombed nuclear and military sites in Iran over the weekend. Today, the war appears quiet. NPR international correspondent Anna Batrawi is in Dubai, and she's here to explain the status of the conflict. Hi there.
Hi.
Okay, so almost as soon as the ceasefire was announced, Israel